Hi. So,
What to do?
so how's the cyberspace? Maybe I will call.
We are
Everything is
managing.
good. We're
We are
managed.
managing. We are managing. We are
That's
managing. The system is working 24/7.
that's
Even with
good.
hiccups, cry.
Mm,
About 18/7.
18/7.
Just 6 hours of shutdown.
Okay. Mm.
Never bye.
We thank God that everything is good. We're monitoring the space.
Monitor. You people are the ones that are supposed to be safeguarding us, but you guys are not.
We're trying our best.
Well, we're
But
talking about the crowd strike. Those that don't know what happened, there was a time everything went.
not even that. So, yeah, in our cyberspace, our YouTube way, everything
Oh,
is
and also
level.
crowd. Oh, yeah. Nyame te ase.
Let me see. I said.
Ene ye de foforo asaba. Etiefo. Yemfa intro no ehuki mu eh.
Hello, lovely people. Welcome to the PK Pod, where we keep it real, raw, unfiltered, and we're coming to give you our side
Of
of
the
the story.
story.
That's it, our side. We can't tell you anybody else's side. It's our
No.
side.
Now, it's not
No,
even can be side the How can we tell you somebody else's side?
no, we can't say someone's story for them. So we bring them here so they share their own story, and then we learn.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
it's going to be another great episode. Like always, we want to shout out our sponsors, our lovely,
Mhm.
lovely sponsors. We have Kumasi Supermarket, our number
Mm.
one African grocery market here in the United States of America. Whatever you
US
need,
of A.
US of A. And your baby branches for Dubai and Europe, all over Europe and Australia will be there. And see, you guys should look out for us in
Yes,
Jesus'
Abeko
name.
Korea.
We'll go to Korea too. But yes, if you need groceries and you need it to be delivered, Kumasi Supermarket, they've got you 100%. We also have Suya Lab, the number one suya spot here in the States as well. Chicken suya, beef suya, ribs, jollof. All you have to do is put it in the microwave. Once you get it, warm it up. You grab your malt, grab your drink, and you chill and eat your suya, enjoy your food. And lastly, we have Trust J Events. If you're in the New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut area, they are your number one people to hit up for your dance floors. You need beautiful, classy, elegant dance floors. Trust me, our sis Tiffany has got you great prices, great work, and book soon because soon these people will be booked, fully booked, and then you won't be able to get what you need. So please, you've heard it here, and tell them that the PK Pod sent you, and they'll give you that A1 treatment. So those are our sponsors. Now we're gonna get into our episode, right? And also, before you introduce the guest, one thing I've realized, I don't know if you've peeped, so far, and it hasn't been intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
But our guest, one, they're all PKs so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you pay attention, everybody's a leader. I don't know like how, but it says a lot though. Nanedu, Dorcas, Mrs. Kiss, I guess today, and even us and Elder Sami. So God has been good to PKs, but what's happening? Because we're all running away.
Oh my days.
all running
I said
away.
what kind of sound.
But
Wow.
hey,
Hmm, hmm,
so
hmm,
I'm
hmm.
gonna give it to you. Introduce our guest. But yeah,
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
leader.
yeah. Today I want to keep quiet. I want to not do too much, but I can't hide my excitement because
Aw,
today we are going international
we
again.
are actually.
Today, today there is no ordinary person that is here. There is no ordinary PK that is here. He
No.
is a doctor. He is a servant.
Oh,
He
come
is
on.
a musician. He
Mm-hmm.
is a fresh boy. He is, in fact,
I would,
he is a, this one will give it away. He is a United States
come on.
Army official
Yes.
servant. Just say he's The whole OG. Ladies and gentlemen. Young girl.
No, I was gonna say something. I was gonna call 1 man 1,000 at this point.
He's a PK 1,000. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from South Korea.
Come on, drum roll.
Jesus, welcome, Reverend Pastor, Prophet, Apostle, Evangelist, Dr. Sustenance, Jehu Gyimah.
Introduction where they elaborate power. Now fresh boy na it say.
Fresh boy. Also for you say also for you fanboy. You are fanboy.
You.
Hey. Right now you are married.
A big bro me so I say.
But Pastor, how are you doing?
Okay. I'm Adam. All is well. All is well. Oh, the fresh boy I come. I just say a boko.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the PK Podcasts here on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And we are so honored, and we really thank you for making time to be with us this time. We know you're a busy guy. You're a very, very busy guy. You and Kim Jong-un prayers now.
Yeah. All night to cry. I feel that. Yeah. Sorry.
Hey.
Yeah, sure. Alpha. Only came all night today. And I just say SMP.
Oh, but thank you for coming on. Sofo, I know many know you from afar. The youth and Pensa here in the US do know you. But for our audience that doesn't, could you please give us an introduction of who you are, the family you come from, and what you've been doing within the church so far?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you so much once again for having me. It's a great privilege. This is something that I've always looked forward to, but you've taken it another notch. So I want to say God bless you for the good work you're doing. I think that it will go a long way to be a blessing to PKs. And I also want to thank the sponsors for the good work they are doing behind the scenes. It's amazing. So keep on sponsoring, and if anybody would want to add on to our sponsorship, I believe that would still be good. Yeah,
you heard the man of God. You heard the man of God.
Yeah, straight from Father God.
Straight from Father God.
Yeah. So again, thank you. But so by God's grace, I was born in the early 80s, which has not been too long ago. I still feel fresh. I still feel young, and I think I look young too.
You're in the military, so you have to be fresh and young.
Fresh and young. I grew up when I was born. My parents were already in ministry, and so pretty much that's all I have known for the most part. And so I have drank, I have breathed, and I have swum in the crucible of ministry, if you will. By God's grace, we have traveled, we traveled around quite a bit, both in ministry and also on assignments, just in different areas. So that gave me a flair of just dealing with different people, and somebody will say, "Sorry, your characters be brave." So you get to see and experience a lot of different dynamics and different people, which has helped to shape my life. And so I'm the first of three other siblings. Our youngest is 28, 29, but we are all married, so we are all off the market. And by God's grace, I am married to the love of my life, Eunice. We love to worship, and just that has been a big part of our lives. And God has blessed us with three lovely girls. And by God's grace, I think that we are done as far as the incubation is concerned. But if God decides to throw one in there, we'll say thank you. But it has to be a boy. So
We'll
Spirit.
take it to prayers for you. Don't worry.
okay, I hear you. So that one I take it from those that have gone that route. Yeah. So if you're gonna say the prayer, that would be good.
Maybe then
And by
South Korea air will help.
yeah. I didn't think about it last 2 weeks, but now that you're saying it, we'll think about
We have to make a return trip.
it. Yeah. So by God's grace, I came to the United States in the early 2000s. And prior to that, I was involved in church quite a bit with the youth ministry in Ghana and also Pensa that the Lord helped us to establish a number of them, including the one in the high school that I attended, Adisadel College. But when I got here, God just placed that burden on my heart to just sink in with young people. So it didn't actually start like you're a leader, you're leading, but it's just always bringing young people together and just chit chatting and talking, and over time it metamorphosed into different things, into leadership. But I have loved to serve with and with the young people and just be a blessing to them. So that has been the track. And of course, by God's grace, we got into full-time ministry. Have served this year will be 15 years actually.
Wow.
God has taken us around quite a bit. We've gone to the West, Midwest, and we started from the East Coast. And so we've gone around, and now God has planted us in Texas, to be specific, Temple, Texas, where I serve as a U.S. Army chaplain. And God has been good. And now I'm on a rotation, what they call it, to South Korea, and still loving ministry, as it were. So that's just a snippet of my life. And to add to it, I'm also a fourth generation. So my great grandfather served as a minister. My grandfather did. My father did. Yeah. And here I am. So um, that has been exciting to continue with the legacy that our forebears left for us. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for answering the question. Were your grandfathers and your great grandfather all within Pentecost?
Yes. They all served in the Church of Pentecost. Yeah.
Okay. So then I'll ask, or Otto, did you want to go ahead?
Now you go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, so I think growing up, you knew the family you came from. Growing up, was ministry ever on your mind as a child of a minister? Or was it something that you also didn't want to entertain, like some PKs?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I knew where I was coming from. I knew what I had, and I knew the experiences that I had gone through, which put me, out there. But it wasn't more so to become a minister, to become a pastor. It was more so to serve. And so I think that it came through as I was doing that. But initially, just looking at the challenges that it came with, and we had to stay with different people. I think we'll get into that. We had to stay with different people. We had to experience different things, and so it wasn't that much appealing to me. I mean, I found myself years down the line encouraging my sister Esther and her husband, who were called for so long into being officers of the church, and my sister was so much against it. She was like, "We're still serving. We don't want to be in leadership." And I found myself trying to
We need to arrest
convince
her. We
them
need
and
to arrest
encourage
her.
them. But I was in the same soup. Prior to ministry, I really didn't want. I wanted to serve, but I didn't want to be there at the forefront, just leading. For some reason, it wasn't appealing. But I think that my journey and my exodus to the United States helped to refine that idea and also to place that call in my heart and in my spirit. And here I find myself serving.
So the thing is, if God has called you, your family as a Lewi, or they'll say that's how our mothers would say Lewi Ebusiaku. But if you
Yeah.
are a Levite or Levi, today we were actually reading, my wife and I were doing the Bible thing, and Moses' parents were like a family of Levi, so that line. And
Mm.
it looks like you don't have a choice. Like Amma, you were saying, every one of them that we've brought up here, even the notorious one. Nanedu, forgive
And
me.
which one was the notorious one?
Nanedu, I apologize. Even the ones that we feel like we're rebellious, there is some form of that call in us. Is it genetically transmitted, or is it in the blood, or as you grow you live that life, you see your parents live it, and then it becomes your psyche. It just takes you, and then you gravitate towards that. Like last time we were talking, Steph, after our conversation with Mrs. Case, and we were saying that, we just love to be in church. We just love to be in church. Like, we just love to be in church. We can't even say anything. We just love to be in church. There's no explanation. So how was that? Was it what was the difference? Because I'm sure your sister, Sister Esther, she does amazing stuff, mentoring and all these things, right? Abby, musician, great stuff. Bra Kofi, great stuff with Embrace. You couldn't have written a better, Levitical order of familiar involvement in God's work. So how is that? Is that from that perspective of all of them?
I think that it's a mixture of everything. Like I said in the introduction, I've briefed, I've swum, so everything is ministry to me. Even when it comes to just an ordinary conversation, it is. And just recently, when my family visited here, they spoke to some of our leaders, and some of them have served in the army for a long time. They've had experiences with different people, and I was surprised they said that, but they were telling my wife that one of them said, I have served for 19 years in the army. I've never seen somebody who understands ministry like this. And so for a person of that caliber to say something like that, and it's not that I do it intentionally, it's more like it's wired in the system, and whether you like it or not, along the line, some type of ministry is going to come your way that you would find serving, without necessarily even any specific titles or anything like that, but you find yourself serving. And for here, for example, I see people just, they'll hear that, oh, there's this guy there who would help you, he'll talk to you, and by the time you leave, you're fine. And so some people will just come because they've heard that somebody is here that can talk to you, that will make you feel that way. So I think that it's a collection of all these things that come together to form our makeup, to form the people that we have become. And I don't think that it's done intentionally. For example, when we're growing up in my home, before I got saved, my dad, at a morning devotion, spoke to us all and said, that if you're born in a garage, you are not a car. And so you all have to make that conscious decision to give your lives to Christ. I remember an emoji that I saw recently. The guy said, I thought you gave your life to Christ. So I did. But the whole point of the matter is that once that once that happened, I realized that over time I was loving to serve. I was loving to be around God's people. I was loving to do all those things without necessarily any type of, if you will, maybe recognition. So it comes, as part of our formation, as PK kids. And I think that that's why a lot of us, sometimes in our minds, we're thinking, no ministry, nothing at all. And then along the line, you find that it is catching up to you. You are not even chasing it. It's like catching up to you in that sense. So I think that's really what it is for
Now,
all the people.
did you see your parents, your grandparents, or your great grandparents, like you said? Did you see them in action? And how? What are some of the profound things that you've seen them do that have affected your contributed to Wasofudie?
Yeah, so I didn't see my great grandfather. I heard about him. I've read about him in the history of the church. He was with the founder, Pastor James McKeown. But I met my grandfather, and I was named after him. He was 110 when he died. He served as a tent minister. So he was a contractor. So they used to build church buildings. My father was born in Takwa. And when he was born, my grandfather was a tent minister, helping to build one of their oldest church buildings there. But when I was born and I saw my grandfather, he at the time had retired, but he had a healing ministry. He had retired somewhere in the eastern region of Ghana, a small town called Nudu. And at that old age, I think at the time that I was old enough to see him, was probably in his 80s to 90s. He was still organizing prayer meetings for people to come over, and his healing ministry was still very sharp. He used to go to farm without any, walking stick.
As a retired pastor.
As a retired pastor, yes, he
And
used to go
after
to the
retirement,
farm.
he was going to the farm. So he was doing his business, basically.
He was still doing his business.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he was still doing that.
Retired bivocational. Okay.
Everything combined. Yeah, so he was still doing that. And people traveled still to, come and enjoy that type of prayer. But when at some point, he put that down. But whenever he visited us, I remember he would bring us 1,000 and, lobsters, because that's usually the part of Ghana that has that. But what I realized with him that has formed part of what I do was his devotional life. Whenever he woke up in the morning, you would hear him singing songs, and you would also hear him pray. So some of the old songs. Anopa me walk Christ, area bring me walk Christ, and you bring me walk Christ, Anaju me walk Christ. So you hear him sing some of these songs, and you know that Grandpa is up. But the kind of prayer that he prayed was the kind that will, whether you are in close proximity or not, would inspire you to also love to pray, love to worship. And that is something that I've picked from him. And, even here, sometimes I would wake my wife up and we will just have, even though the times are different, we'll just have devotions. We'll just pray. So for my grandfather, that was one of the things that I learned from him, which is not the outside ministry, but what you do in your closet to keep you sharp. And for my dad, I think that he's just a blessing to us. What I learned from him and about him is the fact that everybody has to have something that cuts them out from everyone. All right. So right from childhood, I did not have to come to the United States to have knowledge of how to go out for a dinner, in a restaurant. So my dad and mom have on two separate tangents when it comes to some of these things. My mom loves to cook. She wants to cook her fried rice in the house. She wants to make sure that you are enjoying things that you can enjoy outside. And my dad was a little bit, on the flip side, where sometimes he would just say, "Hey, it's Saturday night. Tomorrow, I know we're going to church, but we're going on an ice cream date today." And that is as far back as Ghana. So he would take us to the ice cream place. And while we were enjoying the ice cream, he would bring stuff up, as far as how we look at our future, what we would like to do, the things that, would help. And I remember he took us to this place, Kikiriki. It's a restaurant in Accra, somewhere in the cantonment area. And when we went there, he wanted to use that opportunity to reorient us of how sometimes people even think that if you went out, on a date, or you went out to fellowship like that at a restaurant, you are the worst sinner of the world. All right. So we got there, we ordered our food, and then he was like, Muba baby say in places like this, you get to share fellowship, you get to talk, so things that are seemingly people look at as bad things, you can transfer them and make good out of them. So I started learning that at a very young age. And he himself in his ministry had, he was a prophet for a while, and then he became an apostle. He had a very unique ministry, and all the time what he kept telling us was to make sure that we cut out our ministry as we go along. The way we serve shouldn't be the ordinary. It shouldn't follow the status quo. Me as it's fine, but what makes you different? And so even where I sit now with all that, and I would have wished that he was alive to see how God was moving things, but may his soul rest well. But I say that to say that he was always encouraging us to be different. And I think that if anything has made me different over the years, I still hear his his voice speaking, that be different, just serve but be different, right? So for my grandfather and my father, those were two big things that I saw. My mom, on the other hand, was a teacher, so she taught for a while, but she has been the reason why I don't get tired of doing things in the house. Like ube who me say me no am jollof for hapa nya asem ketwa.
Hey!
So she also brought that piece home, which has become a valuable tool to my family, because sometimes Eunice, my wife, will be tired, and I'll be like, okay, let me get in the kitchen and see what I can do to help. And when they came, my jollof was top notch. I mean, they all ate and
We told you our Sopo does everything.
Yeah. Pastor, we are going to use your jollof to go and dinner for Ghana, Nigeria jollof. We'll bring your jollof to come and
Where Ghana pepe.
You ready first? Wow.
You ready first,
So I have a quick question before we go into
short. Yes, no, go ahead, please. In short, I was just summarizing all that. So go ahead.
Okay. I want to go back a little. A question came into my mind that I'm really eager to ask you. You have your great-grandfather, your grandfather, and your father who have all come before you in ministry. Do you feel like there was a pressure or expectation as to how you would do in ministry with all these great men who came before you? Has there been expectations or pressures that maybe you have put for yourself currently being in ministry or growing up? Or do you feel like there's expectation and pressure even from the outsiders who have witnessed their ministry and possibly how they see that your ministry should go as well?
Even when they hear the name, Hey,
The name.
Opapani Apostle Gyimah. Hey, sir.
Yeah, so I think that from the outside, a lot of people have a certain type of expectation. And I remember I went to minister somewhere in Gettysburg, either Gettysburg or Dumfries. And when I finished, one older man, and I think he knew my dad, was like, and then the old man Prophet Gyimah, no pa, Prophet Gyimah of old. And then well, after he said that, he said, and one on them, but I realized that sometimes people try to kind of compare and put you in that mode, and they want you to be like your father. But I think what has helped me is that voice, from my dad that always spoke to me that you have to cut out your ministry for yourself. So I have not, from the outside, I think that there is an expectation. I think that there is pressure, but for all that I do, my goal is to, number one, to serve and serve the Lord, and number two, to do what makes me different. My great grandfather sang. He sang, and I think they said he played the piano also. So that's why it runs through the family in that sense. But never have I put that pressure on myself, to kind of want to be like him. I've always wanted to just be me and do what God wants me to do. But it's because of how my dad oriented us, right from the get-go, not to try to be like anybody else but ourselves. And I think that is what makes us different, when it comes to ministry. That's a
Nice.
very good question, because there's a lot
Nice.
of, and I think that many people will not want to get into ministry because of these expectations that people have, of them from their parents. And it will not be the same. It will always be different.
Yeah. Thank
True.
you for that. And for
Yep.
you have great men, like 3 great men coming before you. So I can only imagine
The pressure is
the
getting
pressure.
Pressure,
is
there.
getting
Pressure,
Yeah.
there, real.
but I think Pastor has also elevated his pressure. so
Huh?
so yeah, because not elevated I mean you have matched the pressure, because
Okay.
traditionally, and I would like to hear your thoughts on the process of where you are right now. That's where this question is going. Traditionally, for a PK a Pentecost pastor, you leave whatever you're doing and then you come to do this full time, right? But now, like you're saying, your dad encourages you to cut out and be different. Don't let your ministry be like every other person's, and see what God is using you in your generation, in your time, and how that helps, right? And now you, a minister, 15 years in, wait, there's a switch. What's happening? Pastor Jehu, hey, he's in the military now. Now he's doing the work in the military, unprecedented. First time. I know there are ministers that were in the military and then they were called in it, right? But coming in and entering into that sphere where you think, how is this going to work? How are we going to do this? The traditional COP mindset of doing ministry, or COP status quo, but breaking in, or breaking out into a different into a different sphere. How did that come to play?
That's a good question. I think that it came with a lot of challenges, and up to now, uh, a lot of people think that I have left COP. Yeah, but if I've, yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know that. That was a perception.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I've had people actually call to say, yeah, yes, we're free. Sorry, ni mayambana. I'm like, yeah, I didn't know where to my briefy, my swimming. So
Wow.
meaning I don't know where else I'm going. So people have that kind of perception. But I think that again, it comes back to the fact that thinking outside the box and knowing that doing ministry can affect different people, not only in your scope, but also outside of your scope, is a very helpful tool. And I wouldn't lie that a ministry like this, like the chaplaincy ministry in the military, is a very challenging one. I was telling somebody this week that sometimes I have so much of an overload of information about soldiers that sometimes I feel like I want to explode. Yeah, because you have to also toe the line of confidentiality and all these things. Yeah, so it's a cutout ministry, all right, but it's a very daunting one, very difficult task. But the whole mindset of not remaining traditional and trying to cut out ministry has always been the running theme for what I do, and why I do it. And so, as for the expectation and how people thought, it is still the same. But I think that I just maintain my composure as a minister, and then do what I have to do, and eventually it will speak for itself. It is not your normal COP minister, and I think that we're even having challenges trying to get people. I've actually taken time to call a few people, and I've tried to talk to them. Oh, this is a good ministry that I think would be a good match for you. And they're like, so for me, they are ministers, all right, but they don't think of it in that sense. So I feel that it is a very big step. Whoever is trying to step into it must be very ready to do that, and must also be ready to face all the undue pressure and the unrealistic expectations that people may have when it comes to a ministry like this. I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
Well, how did you get to this point? Trying to be like, I'm gonna take this bold step, and I'm gonna take this head on.
So
Because
that
it takes a lot of courage,
And so, can I add on to the question? Was this something God told you, like, go and do this, or was this even a passion? Like, growing up, did you want to be in the military, or how did that come about?
Yeah. Now, you look at me and look at my brother. My brother he has the military body. He
yes.
has the military presence. When I stand with him, I look like a small boy. But I'm the oldest. I would always make sure I confirm that I'm the oldest, and he comes right after me. So it wasn't. It wasn't something that I think I planned, but I think that God planned it in a way that he had prepared me prior to. So years ago, while we were ministering in California, I came across a Catholic priest who was Ghanaian, but for some reason, you know how sometimes you meet people, they just fall in love with you, just like that. He was a little older, maybe 5 years older than myself, but he looked young. He liked youthful things. So he would once in a while invite me to their outdoor gatherings where they wouldn't do mass like they do indoor. So we'll go and sing. Sometimes I would, give a short message. And while we did that, he would also come for our prayer meetings in Oakland, Fridays. Catholic priest, no abeshe, yeah, buttons are no Bobby. So I kind of I didn't understand who this person is, So one day, I was talking to him, and he said that he feels that he sees something different with me that is not within the ordinary scope of a COP minister. Then he told me his history, that his mom is a deaconess in Kumasi, and his dad, I think, had passed, but he was also an elder. But what got him into this whole Catholic thing was he traveled to Nigeria, and part of him trying to regularize himself there, trying to all that, that's what got him into becoming a priest. But he still has the heart. That's why he would come on Friday service. I'm saying this to just make my point. And so he asked me that, have you considered um, chaplaincy as um, a part of ministry that you would do? And that time, that was the first time that I was hearing the word chaplaincy. And he says that, well, the way your ministry is, it would be good to cut your ministry out. And then as soon as he said that, it clicked me of what my father had been saying over the years. As a chaplain, you get to not only minister to church folks, but you get to minister to people within a specific sphere, and so that wasn't a prayer that I prayed prior to, but it was a prayer that I prayed after I heard that. And so I was asking God, what all can I do to be a blessing to other people that is not within the normal things that we all do? I tell people this all the time, that you can be a very normal COP pastor and retire as a COP pastor by doing all the normal things. You sit down, BCB, your T assembly, BTB, yeah, all those things. Like, you'll be able to do all of them without necessarily shining or coming out as a cutout person. And so when he said that, that really triggered something in me, and I started praying. And then he gave me some kind of direction. So I started serving as a hospital chaplain in California when we were there. That was about 2013, around that time. Um, and I remember back then, when I started, I even had, a little backlash with my area head. Now, Ujuma no betu eniaye. No, nyede bia no akosha hospital. And even for now, for the, because it's out, so I wouldn't mention the name. But for now, he has warmed up. He loves it. If people calculate me, they might probably figure out. But 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 I love him.
Nobody should do any
No,
calculation.
any calculation.
No calculation. Yeah, but it was a challenge, because even then, the way, and that was long before this whole idea of chaplaincy actually has come, to stay, and now it's even much easy to get in. And so I was always, trying to hide from what I was doing, even though it was beneficial, and I knew that it would help me. Now, in the trade as a chaplain, there's a program called CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education. And what that does is that it helps you to know, maybe put it in context, it helps you to know your strengths and your weaknesses as a person, as a minister, so that you can combine both to help other people. So if I know my weakness as a timid and a shy person, when somebody comes around and they are bubbly, I try to lean into their strength, so that our discussion that we're having would be beneficial. And at the end of the day, they will be able to benefit from the interaction that we're having. So in simple terms, that's what the trade does to you. And it makes you not so much of you don't have identity crisis, because you really know this is what you carry, this is what you bring across board, and you are able to enter into any space, enter into any place. You see a military meeting. Sometimes you even get there, you're afraid, because the faces that are sitting down looking at you. And if you don't have this kind of training, sometimes some of those things would intimidate you. So I think that is what over the years pushed me into this type of ministry. When we went to Virginia, I continued. I met the same area head, and actually this time they paid for my training there. They embraced it. So with the first instance, and now I'm giving them a thumbs up, and then gave me the blessing to do that. And I think that if anything good has happened to me as a person and as a minister, going through this kind of experience has really, 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 really helped me. So that's in short how these things have shaped and have helped me to grow as a person.
Wow. I love it. Amma, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I just kind of want to follow up with that. Obviously, getting into, so one thing I'm noticing is that when our church, even especially in our church, we're now uncovering that ministry looks different.
Yes.
So it's not the typical, like you said, like pastor has gone to set up a church building or has created like many assemblies. Like there's ministry looks different, and we're kind of seeing that. So we get to hear of your challenge even with branching off into that side of ministry. But what are some other challenges that you face that you don't mind sharing, and then advice or lessons that you'd like to give to the public through those challenges?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think that one of the biggest challenges that I face is getting into a different culture that has a lot of subcultures underneath that you would have to align yourself and become acculturated so that you can affect the people.
Mm,
If an ordinary COP minister comes to into the military, they would have a culture shock. They will do that because even the normal language that is used is not your normal church language. I mean, there is
yes.
the actual military language, but also when people are speaking to themselves, you can have somebody making a sentence without, not having a cuss word in it. And sometimes you would have to be around these people, like Paul said, I've become all things to all men, so that by all means I can win some. And so you sit, with them, you go wherever they are going with them, and sometimes you can get influenced by even the way the culture operates. All right, so that's a big one that by God's grace I've been able to navigate through it. Sometimes when people are even using a cuss word, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, chaplain," and then we'll just laugh over it.
Chaplain, I do jalo.
Mama, I didn't have a phone. Yeah, like like the last time there's this my office near a big space in Tinkrofo Ebahonum, just to um, maybe break away from the monotony of what we're doing here. And there is a kitchen there in T. Sometimes I allow those Omo Mutiminwedi and they are able to cook there. Now on the shelves, yeah, arranging all kinds of drinks. Omo bar, so therefore, here. And whenever they gather like that, almost they are grow, the whole place changes. And I remember one time there was this guy I say, "Oh, chaplain, this is one of the holy juices that we have here. So don't judge us."
Holy Jews. What?
So don't judge us. You see this kind of culture that God has brought you to, that your life should be a reflection of Christ on them without sometimes even saying a word. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I have observed. And then maybe a second one will be moving away from your family, which COP did well, taught us a little bit about it. But this one is a Pro Max.
Bro,
This one is a Pro Max. This one is a Pro Max, and it's simply because part of the culture which has become very normal is that when people deploy, there are so many vices that come with it. Inti obi wo hɔ a waware deda na yere eniha, they would try to get with other people, and it's normal, like it's okay. Some people get here or more, they miss their families, and so sometimes they try to have coping mechanisms that would help. Into Obi Oha, they don't drink excessively, but while here they begin seeing that their appetite for drinks, are just coming up, increasing. You have people that sometimes they have breakdowns, just break down like that, and they don't know what else to do because they are away from their family. So with me, the challenge is having to carry the burden of such people. And sometimes if you are not careful, you the one that is extending the help. If you're not careful, you would for some of those things. There will be the entertainment of some of these thoughts, and you would have to reorient yourself to kind of get you away from the gather and bring you to where you're supposed to be. So the culture brings a challenge. The vices that happen also bring challenges to you, the person that's in it. um, should I add a third one? Maybe also being a soldier itself. Um, my knee and my ankles are always in pain somehow because you have to consistently keep on exercising. We did 2 3 weeks ago. We did a 12-mile rock where you put a big bag on your back and then you walk around for 12 miles. So we did that. And then not long after, we also did what they call ACFT. You have to exercise so that they kind of gauge where you are in terms of fitness. And so after doing all that, I could feel that my body physically so it is just basically some of those things, but the expectation is that you are supposed to be a minister, all right, but you're also supposed to be a soldier. And so bringing those things together, and even be not just a soldier but be an officer also, just bringing all those things, your things that you send out must be very succinct, must be very straightforward. People must understand. And so all those expectations sometimes could be very daunting, but God is giving us the grace.
Wow.
And I think that my family, immediate family, Eunice and the kids are also supporting Omobai, and it was a good good air around.
You okay? Ama, you try ticket. You go Germany. We'll go to Korea
We'll
instead.
go to Korea.
Wow.
Safo, I feel like you're the perfect person to ask this question. So I've always wanted to ask a minister. I think I've asked my dad actually, but I'll ask you. Ministers, naturally, you all are in the many roles and the hats that you wear. You're also counselors. But I see that in the role that you're in, and I could be wrong, you you it still requires a lot more counseling. And you were mentioning that the things that are said to you, it even becomes heavy. Now, I had a teacher who was a therapist, but she also taught psychology and sociology, and she said that even as a therapist, even as a counselor, she takes time because every therapist needs their own therapist. So you, who is being given so much information, this burden, and you have to carry people's loads and pray for them and advise them, you also have your own challenges. Probably you have your own things that you're going through. How do you manage that? How do you manage that? How do you keep yourself sane so that you can go and help others and be a blessing to others, but also take care of yourself and your family and your, like, everything, anything personal to you? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think you're right. For people in ministry, such as a counselor, people that help others, even medical doctors. In my trade, my field, there's this thing that, and similar to what you said, a therapist needs another therapist to help them. A counselor needs a counselor. A pastor needs a pastor. So even some of the big ministers, sometimes when they are speaking, and I think somebody like Pastor Benny Hinn, I've heard him specifically mention that he has a pastor, right? So it is always good to have another person, sometimes maybe outside of your spheres, so that you are able to share certain things with them and they are able to encourage you. So for me, what I do is that I have other friends that are ministers in other places and other churches that sometimes I'm able to open up to, that also help in terms of if I have a very large load that I feel it's heavy to carry. So that I try to do. I also sometimes confide in my wife, not specifically opening up, because I also don't want to have her begin carrying some of the load. So what we do in terms of that is to bring it up in prayer and pray extensively about it. So seeking outside help, bringing it to the Lord in prayer, that these loads that are carried, which are not supposed to be mine, are well put out under the feet of Jesus, so that I'm not carrying it on my own. Because whatever it is, you, the person that is ministering, cannot totally carry this burden. You cannot. It is only God that can do that. So learning to put it at the feet of Jesus and having him run with it. There are also sometimes that I read on specific topics. So one of those things that came up that I read about was masturbation. How do people deal with that? Because when people deploy like this, that is a big thing, right? How do people deal with issues like that? And I remember, sometimes it's just the culture around makes us freak out on doing certain things. So I remember, and this one maybe it's just my mind, but I remember I went to visit one of the churches here in Korea, and I was opening my phone. I had this elder sitting by there. The first thing that was on, because I was reading that prior to the service, was ideas about masturbation and what they mean. So I opened it and I realized that the elder was looking at my phone. Like, Irade, help me so that this guy said, "Go ahead." Go ahead. Misinterpret what they see.
Sorry, I can see it.
I don't know why that came on first, but again, it's trying to read around and trying to abreast myself with issues that people are facing, that can I can be of help in terms of that. This week, for example, I'm trying to find the term that I learned, and I try to learn a lot of things so that I can be cut out well to help the soldiers. So he said that where is it? Yeah, so I learned what they call thrill seeker and adrenaline junkie, right? So they were trying to explain this to me. That's a Gen Z term. Like, I'm 80s inti, now, and as they were describing all these things to me, I realized that, man, I still need to read. I still need to abreast myself with some of these things that are going on, so that I can be well cut out for the people that I minister to. And so, in short, that is really what I do to kind of help me not carry the load and the burden all by myself.
Wow. This, I don't know, but like my mind is going haywire, like, because there's levels on levels on levels on levels on levels on levels to this. Like, even as a PK, pastors taking care of people, and even on the other level, let's say in the chaplaincy. So I think it's a thing that we need to pray for them, like, legit. Even aside this, imagine those that are on missions and being in a different environment. Like you were saying, the hospital, the chaplaincy stuff, it's mind blowing. Like, one time I was at work and there was an issue with our manager, the bosses, and so everybody, they were like, we are going to do a gesture and show our manager that we all support her. So I was just chilling in the break room. Every day I'm in the break room, one of the our charge nurses comes in and it's like, David, we're going to do this for our boss, and we want you to say a few words, and then at the end say a prayer. So I was like, me say a prayer? The reason why I'm saying is, those that know that I'm goofy, I am very goofy at work too. If you can check on, I do a whole bunch of goofy stuff. Yes. So I was actually taken aback. I was like, why would they want me to, do that? And I was like, okay, yeah, I got it, whatever. Because they tried calling the chaplain, but the chaplain was busy, so the chaplain couldn't come. So they were like, David, when the chaplain doesn't come, you do it. So I go and then start, and Pentecost, this thing comes on like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then I pray, and everybody is like, amen. And they're like, hey, you are a pastor? You are this? I'm like, wait, what? Who doesn't pray? You don't pray your life. You don't pray this. You don't do this. And then it changes. Then it means your life changes. Now they see you in a different light. Now there's an expectation on your life now, because now they see that you're different. Now imagine that when you are in a different situation, like where Pastor is right now, in the military, with the curse words and all that, those things, the suicide ideations and everything, those things are real. Those things are real, and I cannot plead enough as a PK and as a lover of Christ. I think this is somewhere we need to send people to, not necessarily looking for the numbers, because right now I'm sure Pastor will not have numbers to say these are my members, but he will have made an impact to a lot of people that they will also go make an impact somewhere. He'll probably have saved somebody from, whatever. Yeah. So if we don't have a lot of pastors coming in, or people coming into the chaplaincies, in the hospitals, in the schools, all these people, we can't win them for Christ. And they might not necessarily be our typical members that come to our church, but we can reach them in those places. And I think Pastor has opened my eyes to see the great avenue that we have in the chaplaincy world. Yeah, Pastor, thank you, Pa. Thank you very much. It's very important. I know our time is we're over the hour. Pastor is a busy guy. Pastor, do we have a little bit?
Just a little bit, yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Military man. you give us 10 minutes.
You got 10 minutes.
Okay. So what would you let's wrap up, and what would you tell other PKs, knowing that their dads are in this ministry, even us PKs that are growing up, and maybe the fear of taking this call, we don't want to do, we just want to serve, what would you tell them? What is the message that I feel like there's a whole bunch we need to talk about? I think we need a part 2 for this, because there's a whole lot to unpack. It's a whole lot, too much going on in my head right now. But to summarize it, what would you tell other PKs?
Yeah, but to maybe take us back, I think that for you, maybe you should start thinking of your name getting on the white paper where they will say
so
which white paper? Pastor, which white paper?
There's a pro overseer David.
Call the station.
Use the Otuo Berima. That one doesn't have government ID.
Yeah, but I think that when I think of the idea of ministry, just right from what I have experienced within my upbringing, and somebody has said that a pulpit is not necessarily the structure that we have, at the church, but it is pulling people from the pit and bringing them to that place where God wants them to be. So when when the normal PK thinks about the pulpit or ministry, as it were, they begin thinking of a normal way of doing things. And so, what I would, have for my brothers and sisters is that ministry is huge, so much so that you don't have to be the one standing in the church and doing all that. Don't get me wrong, I love that. I love to sing the Penty songs. I love to dance. Though I don't dance too well, to dance the Penty dance. Yeah, but there is more to it than than just being there within the church. And I think that is what the general theme of the church is, directing us to, and pointing us to come out of the walls of the church. So ministry should be thought of as something bigger than what we have experienced. And if we do that, it will help us. I think that when Jesus thought about us, when he accepted the call to come and save us, he wasn't only thinking of it, as Obenenam, his world around there. He thought all the way to our world now. And that is why we are affected by the gesture that he showed us on the cross. So ministry should be thought of as that, so that when we are thinking ministry, it will not only be within the church. I think that's number one. And number two is that we should also be very open-minded. If you're raised in the Church of Pentecost as a COP kid, you can become very parochial in your outlook of things. The people that by God's grace,
can I Google the word? Can I Google the word?
I Google. Call Urban Dictionary. Yeah.
This is a doctor. We forgot your doctor. Doctor is talking. So.
So you when you think of it that way, it helps you to minister. Because I was telling my wife, here we have communion on the second Sunday of the month. So when I told my wife about it, she was like, "Oh, not any COPD, it was just a discussion." And I'm like, dear, have you forgotten that this is not COP? Even though we want to bring our things here, I think that when you look at the picture, at the bigger picture, you want to do what will affect and impact the people. And if you don't take care, certain things that we do normally would become so normal to you that you would want to transfer what you have received all the way into a community that may not be willing to accept it that way. I mean, the Bible can say, "Mundi namonom namonfanya menkai." No, say you be dia nom na your third Sunday or say second Sunday. At the end of the day, so you have to begin thinking that way, so that our traditions and some of the things that we do that we've come to accept as way dear, we could be able to break, from the normalcy and then reach people better in the way we do ministry. Maybe a third suggestion that I would offer would also be that we as PK kids have to come together some way, somehow, because our challenges are peculiar and different. And if we are not able to come together, we will miss out on the benefits of being a PK minister and being able to take ministry with the understanding that we have outside, so we can affect people. I think that we don't talk enough. So some people they have so much in them that they don't want to bring out. I've talked to a couple of people that will say that, sometimes when I see my father and the way they are talking and this and that, it doesn't make it look appealing. When you have other people that you talk to, there were times that I had, my parents, when I was much younger. When I grew up, it stopped, but my dad Apostle Bedu, Apostle Entry, they are all of blessed memory. When they got together in the house, it was like they were having a law court argument. The Bibles are on the table. This one will say his, this one will say that, this one will say that. And then when they finish with that, they will now talk proper church politics. So you hear some of these. You hear some of these.
Oh my goodness.
That the whole thing is it's a human institution, and sometimes the humanness and how we feel and what didn't happen to us and what happened to us and all those things can come in. But at the end of the day, the whole goal is that ministry is bigger than all that. Have I had challenges? Yes, I have. Have I faced certain things? Yes, I have. But I think that when you think about ministry being bigger than what you have experienced and the things that you have gone through, it makes you still want to serve. It puts you in a humbling position. So I believe that as I offer these three, if we're able to do that very well, it will help us to become good ministers as ministers' kids or PKs.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there too. Amma, you know, right?
There's a lot to unpack.
We just don't have the time.
We need a part 2, a part 3, because even Sopho's music ministry we get to touch on.
It didn't go there. Even him married to a PK, we didn't go there.
That's another one. Raising PKs after being a PK. We didn't go there.
I remember one time I told of mommy, what would you do when you hear that I've gone to do this? And then she kept quiet for a minute. The phone was quiet. I said, "Dear Oho." She said, "Yes." Me dream ya okan. When she says that, "Make a choice ko fresh man, ko fresh man." It's interesting. It's interesting.
It's fun. Pastor, thank you. We know you're a busy guy. We're an hour or well over the hour, and we've had this conversation. We have enjoyed every bit. I hope our listeners are taking it in, understanding the struggles and the intricacies of ministry, and seeing that, like, COP, the church shouldn't be just in the buildings. Those that are fixated on in the collection bowl, and I'm from Tomefra, and people, all these, the work is actually outside. And I think that's what the Possessing the Nations agenda is all about. So, those that can get into these spheres, let's go. You don't have to be a minister. You can be a chaplain in your work. You can transform your world amongst your friends. Even in your district, you can be a good steward in your youth ministry, women's ministry, men's ministry, wherever, because it looks like we've only limited it to opening prayer, praises, worship, word, collection, closing prayer, announcement, closing prayer, benediction, and then that's it. But it cuts across. And Pastor, we commend you. We're praying for you that whatever you're doing over there, God be with you, and continue the ministry. It's very hard. It's very, very hard. Like, even thinking about it on a nursing level is hard, and put it in the military. So we appreciate you. We thank you for coming on. Yeah, Amma, you got any words?
I mean, as always, I try to let our ministers know we're very proud of you. God bless you for all that you do. From you, First Lady, the children, we really appreciate you all. And I can imagine the great men that have come before you are also very proud of the work that you are doing and how you are doing ministry and your uniqueness. So keep doing it. I remember being in Chicago and the youth would always say Pastor Jehu's name. Like, people love you.
They love you. At Pensa, when they said, Pastor, everybody is
you. Yeah. Everybody started shouting.
Yeah.
So
we bless God. We bless God for all that.
Thank you.
And thank you all very much for having me.
Pleasure. All right, guys. Make sure to subscribe if you've watched to this time. Make sure you subscribe. Comment, share, like, send it to your friends, send it to your father, your mother. Let them watch this. It's real. I think this is a good one. So deuces until next time.
Do you know what deuces means?
Bye-bye.
You got it?
Bye-bye.